Alright, I'm going to say a couple of free things. First, and most important, big, massive, stupid epilepsy warning. Like, forget Grand Mal. These will be Taj Mahal seizures. After about 30 seconds of gameplay, you'll be moving so fast you could carve a snow angel into concrete. Secondly, I got this game for free from the developer. Twice, actually. Maybe on accident, because he thought my email was fake. Joke's on you, I do use Outlook because apparently I hate myself. He's made the mistake, though, of not bribing me to say nice things, so I'm just going to spout whatever crap comes into my head and face zero consequences. And third, it's not out yet. Not for another 2 weeks, comes out 28th of July, making me a curator / guinea pig. Endlight is the most visually stimulating game I have ever played, and I've played some fucking visually stimulating games. It's at the point where I suspect the only reason the developer's selling it off is because the CIA rejected it from the Directed Energy Weapon program for being too extreme. The basis of these visuals are sprawling, procedurally generated geometric levels, layered with post-processing, and then some more post-processing, and then a bit more post-processing. Everything except your avatar of sorts is enormous and chaotic, yet packed tightly around you. I don't know if the constant perspective tricks are deliberate or not, presume they are, but regardless they create a constant assault of illusions, rather than
small, far away.
You've got large or close. Things appear to grow and shrink and just completely bamboozle you. Each level's procedural generation is based on a different generator. So despite being a similar style, you feel like you've shifted to a whole other evil, nasty seizure dimension each time you move on to the next one. From cavernous tunnels, to a nightmarish car park, to whatever the fuck this is. I found the geometric visuals very entertaining. I love this stuff. It feels like you're exploring the inside of a neuron, especially when it comes to the semi-frequent and much slower paced first-person levels, where you can just meander about an environment to your heart's content. The lighting, though, I found to be a bit of a catch-22. On the one hand, I needed it turned up full to feel like I was getting the full experience, to properly rattle my brain around my skull. On the other hand, it gets absurd very fast. In about 2 milliseconds, you go from, ooh, pretty lights, to,
get ready.
If I turned it down, though, I just felt like outside of the super intense moments, the game lost something. This is obviously just down to personal preference, and it's not bad enough to put me off by any means. It does, however, lead to talk of headaches and stuff, which is mentioned in the options menu, and the guidance is to turn down the post-processing if you're feeling anything like that, but I just found accepting my brain melting to be easier. The gameplay? It's actually surprisingly simple for a game with such complex visuals. No point putting a hat on a hat, I suppose. You had a cube, and you want hoops. You need a certain amount of hoops to beat a level, 10 by default, and then you immediately get shunted onto the next one. Hoops restore a shield stops you dying when you mash yourself against a brick wall. There's one or two other hoop facts too, but I'm not going into that. Not because they're complicated, I'm just a dick. And that's pretty much it for the gameplay, other than the aforementioned first-person levels, but they're more of an interactive art exhibit than a game per se. Most of the challenge comes from ducking and weaving through gaps in the geometry to reach hoops, or just plowing right through it. If you're so inclined, you can also try to beat levels really quickly for satisfaction. And satisfying is something this game at its core does really well. Some levels are definitely better than others in terms of generation, some of them are just a complete mess. The game even acknowledges this. But there is the occasional level that really stands out. If there's one thing to be said about this game, it is very unique. The difficulty is also entirely customizable for any metric really. So I chose to add more hoops, so I had a little more time with each level without having to actually dodge them to play around a bit. And then I put it on a higher speed because that's what the standard hard setting was, and it gave more stimulation. But you can do whatever you want. You can make it ultra frustrating, so you're in constant pain, or you can make it peaceful, so you're in constant pain. I mean, that's cool, as long as you don't end up spending more time tweaking shit than actually playing the game. The sound design is very similar to the visuals, overwhelming, but unfortunately, the mix is a bit, Maybe it's just my headphone amp or my equalizer, but the noises at the start of a level were an absolute howling cacophony compared to the rest. Also, the voice clips that are utilized relatively often are louder than most anything else, but they don't have a separate volume slider that I could find in the options menu. If the voice had a separate volume slider, then the only problem would be that deafening level opening sound. The rest of the mix is fine. And to be honest, that sound might be by design, in which case, fair play. Speaking of levels, there's a few quirks here that are worth mentioning. You can't replay them, you can't choose them, and if you fail too many times, the game permanently kicks you out. Also, F1 opens the options menu. F1, not escape. Don't press escape. Flashbacks like Final Fantasy VIII, was it? Where the game would just blink out of existence if you breathed on the escape key. 8 hours of progress every time. There's well over 100 levels, and apparently there'll be free DLC coming every single month after release for at least a year, which will total another 400 levels. Also, there'll be a special event in December where you can earn a right to replay. I understand the appeal of a hype event, but when there's already well over 100 levels and there's 400 more coming, for me personally, replaying is really not a big deal. I can't see myself bothering. There's a couple minor annoyances. The boundary cube things just pop out of nowhere sometimes and emulsify you. And there's quite a lot of big cutscene type things. However, since the big cutscene type things are skippable, no snoozing for me, so I don't mind. Some people love that stuff. Not me though. Like every fault I've found, it's nothing major, it's literally just little finicky things that I'm nitpicking at, which is good, because death by 1,000 cuts doesn't really apply to game design, it just makes it more charming, doesn't it? And it's definitely not 1,000 cuts. The game has been in development for 10 years or so, apparently. It's the developer's first published game, though they have a lot of experience. I suspect the visuals have something to do with this. Getting a computer a decade ago to run this shit with all the procedural generation and 8th dimensional fuckery, it'd be a good way to claim house insurance. Beyond that, not happening, mate. I've got a big ol' invincible PC now, but most people don't because they've got lives instead. I would test it on a lower end GPU. Don't have one at hand really, but according to the developer, it runs very well on the Steam Deck and it's optimized for it. If it can run on the Steam Deck, chances are it will run on most modern machines. I'm sure a 1660 can handle it fine, probably even a 1650. So, worth it? Price isn't on Steam, but I can tell you from quote-unquote research, it's $16. But at release, it will be just under $13 for a month, which is about a tenner in crooked teeth money. And yeah, knowing what it is now, I think that's pretty reasonable. There's always a risk with games that don't have a particularly well-defined genre that, oh, you don't want to pick it up because you don't know what it's going to be. That's going to be the case regardless of price. But I think I've given you more than enough to go on if you're actually interested. Also, I've got a spare key. I don't really like anybody I know, so I'll just give it away here. Just to a random commenter in 5 days, 6 days, a week. It's all the same, isn't it? Unless you use said comment to call me a cunt.